I was just 3 months old, the first time my own father sold my life to men I would never meet. 31 years later, I am still paying that debt he signed me into. OJ, I need you to hear this from my own mouth tonight because I've lived every single day without a name for what is happening to me. I will not give you my name, not because I am ashamed, because this is not only my confession. It belongs to my mother, my siblings, and to a father who is still alive somewhere in Ashanti region, carrying what he did. So let me just talk and you listen. This happened on a Tuesday afternoon at Kejetia, of all places. I had gone to buy clothes for a funeral, an ordinary errand, in an ordinary week, in a life I thought I understood completely. I was 31 that year, OJ. I had a job at a bank in Edum, my own rented room near Bantama, and a childhood I always describe for people as simply difficult, nothing more than that. I was standing at a fabric store, running my fingers over a bolt of kente, when an old woman I had never seen in my life stopped beside me and just stared. She stared at me for so long that I became uncomfortable. Then she spoke, and her voice was calm, almost gentle, the way an elder speaks when she already knows she will not be believed. She said, "My daughter, you are still here after everything that was done to you. God kept you for a reason. But until you know what was done, you will never be fully free." OJ, I want you to understand something. Kumasi is full of people who will stop you in the market and prophesy at you for money. I have heard it all before. I almost walked away from her, but my feet would not move. Something in me, something that had been quiet my entire life, recognized her voice before my mind understood a single word she was saying. I asked her plainly, "Ma'am, what are you talking about?" And what followed was 20 minutes that broke my life cleanly into a before and an after. She did not speak in riddles, OJ. She described a compound I recognized instantly. The number of rooms, a mango tree standing crooked in the corner of the yard where I used to play as a small girl. She described a night gathering that happened when I was about 2 years old. She described who had carried me there in his own 2 arms. And when she said my father's name, my legs nearly gave way beneath me. She told me she had been young herself that night, present in that compound, and that she had not fully understood what she witnessed until many years later, when the guilt finally caught up with her. She said she had carried that guilt for 3 decades in silence, and that seeing my face that afternoon at Kejetia was a sign she could no longer ignore. Then she said the words that have never left me since. Your father needed power he had not earned, and money that has not come from ordinary work. Somebody told him the price. He paid it with you. She said I was not supposed to survive my 7th year, but I did. And everything after, every accident, every strange sickness, every near miss was the debt still following an agreement I never knew existed. She pressed a folded paper into my palm, a name and a place written on it, and then she disappeared into the crowd near the lorry station before I could even ask her real name. I stood at that fabric store for a long time, OJ. I did not cry. I felt something closer to a key turning in a lock that had been sealed since I was a baby. That night in my room near Bantama, I could not sleep because I had started remembering everything, and this time I was seeing it through a completely different eyes. My father was a respected man in Ejisu by the time I was born, OJ. He owned a transport business, a solid house, a good name, at church. We were comfortable when our neighbors were struggling, and I grew up proud of him. Whenever my older siblings hinted darkly at things from before I was born, things they remembered and I did not, I dismissed them. He was my father. I knew who he was, or so I believed. Sitting alone that night, I went back through my whole childhood, and the first thing I remembered clearly was the visitors, men who arrived after midnight and left before the sun rose. My mother was never introduced to them. They met my father in the back room the children were forbidden to enter. As a small girl, I assumed this was simply how grown men did business. The second thing I remembered was the way my father looked at me, not with unkindness, but with something heavier, a love that always seemed to carry regrets sitting quietly behind it. I used to tell myself he simply struggled to express affection, like many Ghanaian fathers of his generation. After that Tuesday at Kejetia, I understood it differently. It was the look of a guilty man. The third thing I remembered was my 7th year OJ. The old woman had said I was not meant to survive it, and I had always known that year was strange, without ever naming why. A month before my 7th birthday, I felt seriously ill, with a fever no doctor at the hospital could properly explain. I was admitted twice. My mother prayed over me through the entire night. I recovered fully, with no medical explanations that satisfied anyone. And in that same week of my birthday, the tractor I was traveling in on the Kumasi to Kejetia road veered off and overturned. Every other passenger was injured that day, including my own mother, who broke her arm. I walked away without a single scratch on my body, and everyone called it a miracle from God. 3 months later, I fell from the roof of our family house while chasing a stray hen. A fall that should have broken my back left me standing, dusting myself off, walking away again. I always credited God's protection for those years, OJ, and honestly, I still do. But now, I also understand what that protection was, standing between me, and because it did not stop at 7. For the next 2 decades, near misses followed me quietly, and I had always treated them as separate, unconnected events. That night laid out together on paper, they were not separate at all. At 14, at a school near Bekwai, part of my classmates' ceiling, I had changed seats 5 minutes earlier for no reason I could explain, and the seat I left behind was crashed. At 17, I developed a strange skin condition that doctors treated aggressively for 8 months. It vanished as suddenly as it appeared, leaving no scar, no trace, as though it had never existed. At 22, I was in a relationship with a man who quietly began asking questions about my father's business associates. He disappeared without explanation soon after. I later learned someone had warned him away. At 25, I survived a night I still cannot describe fully to anyone, OJ. I was alone in my room when something entered. I only remember a voice telling me to speak a scripture aloud. I spoke it, and whatever had entered the room left. I wrote in my notebook after, simply, the night I almost did not make it, because I had no other words for it. A small provision business I had built over 3 careful years in Asqua collapsed overnight when I was 28. Not through my own mistakes, but through events so precisely targeted that 2 advisors independently told me it looked deliberate. And then there were the dreams, OJ. The same dreams since early childhood. Not nightmares exactly. No screaming, no chasing. Nothing that made sense to describe as fear. In these dreams, I would find myself somewhere unfamiliar, surrounded by figures I could never see clearly, being told things I could quite never hear when I woke. I always woke with a specific feeling, not pain, but absence, as though something present in me before sleep had quietly been removed while I lay there defenseless. I told my mother about these dreams as a child. She prayed over me and told me firmly to ignore them. I told my father once. He simply stood up and left the room without a word. After that Tuesday at Kejetia Market, I finally understood why he left that room. I spent 3 weeks with my notebook, my memories, and that folded paper before I made the most frightening decision of my life. I decided I would confront my father, and I did not call ahead because calling ahead would only give him time to rebuild the face he had always shown me. I traveled to Ejisu in complete silence, rehearsing nothing because I had already decided I would say exactly what I knew and simply wait to see what came back at me. My father was older now, in his late 60s, quieter than the ambitious man I remembered from my childhood. He had found God seriously in the last decade and was known at his local church as a faithful, humble elder. I want to be clear here, OJ, because I do not want anyone dragging every church or every elder through this. Many men and women genuinely change. I simply wondered, standing at his gate, what exactly he had been running from all these years. He welcomed me warmly, as he always had. He asked about my work at the bank. We sat in the same sitting room I had grown up in, and I looked at his face for a long moment before I spoke. I did not call him Daddy that afternoon, OJ. I called him by his name, and I said, I need you to tell me what happened before I turned 7. Tell me about the gathering and what you offered, and to whom. I told him I already had the answer, and that I was only giving him the chance to say it himself, out of his own mouth, in his own sitting room. The silence lasted less than 30 seconds, but it felt like an entire year passing between us. He set his cap down slowly, looked at me, and said, Who told you? Those 3 words told me everything, OJ. Not a denial, not confusion, just a man finally caught by a truth he had been outrunning since before I could talk. What he confessed over the next few hours in that sitting room was heavier than anything I had prepared myself for, because it was not only what he had done, it was why he had done it. Before my older siblings were born, there had been years of real desperation for my father, failed ventures, mounting debts, a marriage strained nearly to breaking under the weight of it. A trusted family friend from Bekwai approached him during those years, a man who claimed there were people who could guarantee prosperity that hard work alone could never produce. My father resisted for 2 years, he told me, until I was born, the last of 4 children, and something about holding me for the first time broke the resistance left in him. He said the argument required that my life be offered, not taken immediately, but bound across time, surrendered in principal payments for what he was asking for. He was told I would leave, but nothing in my life would ever be fully my own. That every good thing would carry a hidden cost, and that certain years would bring the debt due. My 7th year was the first assertion, he said, and when I survived it, he convinced himself the argument had somehow been voided by God, and used that lie to justify 30 years of silence. His voice broke when he told me that part. OJ, he said, seeing me survive meant becoming what he actually was, and he could not face that. So he simply said nothing. I sat with that for a long time before I finally asked him the question I'd driven all the way to ask. I said, of everything you could have offered, why me? He was quiet for what felt like forever. Then he said something I am including exactly as he said it, because I believe other parents need to hear this part plainly. He said, because you were the youngest, because I told myself you would never remember, because I calculated that a life I could provide for was worth more than a life that might struggle anyway. He said he has not had one peaceful night since the day he made that calculation about his own child. And OJ, I did not answer him, because some things are too complete in their wrongness for any response. I stayed another hour only for practical questions, names, dates, the exact nature of what had been done, and I wrote every answer down carefully in my notebook before I stood to leave. I told him plainly, I am going to find my freedom, not for you, but for myself. And then I walked out of that house and drove back to Kumasi in the dark. For the following months, OJ, I tried different things quietly. A prayer camp outside Kumasi, an elder a cousin trusted, deliverance sessions that promised relief and mostly delivered very little that lasted. Every one of them told me something different. One said the agreement was already broken by my survival. Another said it could never fully close, only be managed, prayed over, watched for the rest of my life. I do not know which of them was telling me the truth, OJ. I only know I have not slept through an entire night without disturbance since that afternoon my father confessed it to me. I never went back to forgive him, if that is what you are expecting from me tonight. I do not know if I ever will. Some things a person confesses do not close simply because they finally said them out loud. What I do know is that my father is still alive in Ejisu, still faithful at his church every Sunday, still carrying whatever he carries, and I have not spoken one word to him since that afternoon. I am not telling you this confession to destroy him, OJ, and I am not telling it to protect him either. I am telling it because staying silent almost cost me 31 years of my life without my consent. And silence is still costing me something even now. If something in this feels familiar to you, not the exact details, but the shape of it, the accident, the sickness, the dreams that take something while you sleep, I'm not going to tell you it ends well, OJ, because I do not know what it does. 2 weeks ago, I woke at exactly 3 in the morning with the same old sensation, the feeling of something quietly taken while I lay defenseless in my own bed near Bantaman. I lay there in the dark for almost an hour, staring at the ceiling, asking myself questions I still cannot answer. Was that the past finally finishing its business with me, or was it only just beginning again? I have not told my mother about the night. I have not told my father anything at all since the day I walked out of his single room in Ejisu with my notebook full of answers. Some nights I tell myself the worst of it is behind me. Other nights, OJ, I lie awake listening to my own house, certain that whatever was agreed on my behalf 31 years ago is still owed and still collecting. I keep thinking about the old woman from Kejetia, OJ. I never saw her again after that afternoon. and I never found the address written on the folded paper. Sometimes I wonder if she was still alive. I have gone back to the same fabric store more times than I want to admit, hoping she might appear again, hoping she might tell me the rest of what she knew and chose to leave out that day. She never has, and I have started to accept that whatever she carried with her into the crowd near the lorry station, she carried it away for good, leaving me with only half of what I needed to understand this fully. I do not know how this confession ends for me. I do not know how this life ends for me, OJ. I only know it had not ended yet, and I have stopped expecting it to, the way everyone listening tonight might be hoping it does. This is your anonymous OJ, and if you are new here, I would like you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hype this channel, and tell somebody about your anonymous OJ. I'll see you in our next confession.